The projects that are considered for this award are winners of the jurisdictional business or government award categories, or they've delivered their project in 3 or more states, which makes them qualify directly for the national category. There were 21 projects submitted this year for the national award, and 13 are now finalists. So I have a long list of reading the 13. The finalists for this year's category are Resilient Building Council in Victoria for their project Bushfire Resilience Rating Home Assessment App, the University of Tasmania for their project Bushfires and Your Health, an online course for all Australians, the Bureau of Meteorology and the Northern Territory Emergency Service for their project Delivering Community-Focused Messaging in Gurindji Language During the Major Northern Territory Floods, Disaster Relief Australia in South Australia for their project Disaster Relief Australia Operational Big Map Capability, JDA Co in Queensland for their project Flood Resilience in Action 2022 and Beyond, Resilient Ready in South Australia for their project Kangaroo Island Business Climate Roadmap, Department of Primary Industries and Regions in South Australia for their project Optimism and Hope, Building Resilience After the South Australian Black Summer Bushfires, the University of Sydney in New South Wales for their project Person-Centred Emergency Preparedness or P-CEP Certificate Course, the New South Wales Department of Education Rural Regional Remote Education Policy for their project Principal Connection Days, the University of Melbourne in Victoria for their project Regroup, Community-Led Recovery, Evidence, Dimensions and Supports for Community Recovery Committees, and finally, the Department of Energy and Public Works and Queensland Reconstruction Authority for their project Resilient Homes Fund Disaster Resilience Program. Oh no, there's 2 more. The Suburban Land Agency in the Australian Capital Territory for their project Suburban Land Agencies Your Resilient Home, and now finally, the Tasmanian State Emergency Service for their project Tasmanian Strategic Flood Map Risk Assessment. So due to the high number and the high quality for the finalists in this award, the judging panel have decided to award 2 highly commendeds and then a winner, so bear with us. Our first highly commended award for the Resilient Australia National Award goes to the Bureau of Meteorology and the Northern Territory Emergency Service for their project Delivering Community-Focused Messaging in Gurindji Language During the Major Northern Territory Floods. My apologies. So if you come up, we'll do the photograph.
So now settling into their temporary accommodation in Howard Springs.
A long journey from their inundated communities.
This project came about because there was community feedback that during some severe weather events like Cyclone Trevor in 2019, there was a lack of information in the relevant Aboriginal languages for the communities that these events were impacting.
In the Northern Territory, we do have a lot of language barriers. Even from community to community, there'll be different languages spoken. And to be on the forefront of being able to pass on key messages about what's happening in real time is really important to people who are working with the event. And it's also equally as important for those people who are inside of the event.
The first workshop was held last year. We've held another one a couple of months ago. We brought all the groups together and we did knowledge building around weather and weather warnings and Indigenous knowledge around what to do on the ground when this weather strikes as well. Then in the afternoon, we set up cameras and a mock media event. All the Aboriginal interpreters and all our agency spokespeople worked together as if it was a real media event, ran through the messaging, learnt how to pace themselves, speak clearly, speak in a way that's easier for the interpreters to interpret and make sure that we're set for success.
I'm proud of the fact that we were able to help and assist. The feedback that we got from our interpreters was really positive, and the feedback that we received from our stakeholders was also positive. we received a lot of feedback in person and on social media from people who are involved in the event. And that made me really feel quite proud of myself that we were able to bridge that language barrier, and that we had done as much as we could to participate and help.
So congratulations to the Bureau of Met and the Northern Territory Emergency Service. A second highly commended award goes to JDOCO for their project Flood Resilience in Action 2022 and beyond.
I started in the flood resilience space back in 2011, and post sort of the 2011 floods in southeast Queensland. It became very obvious that there were certain elements to homes that would survive flooding. We came up with a whole series of ideas about how to use particular materials and construction systems to make it easier to clean up and recover from a flood event. Up until 2022, that hadn't been tested. The weekend of the floods in 2022, I was a bit nervous. Within a few hours of that, I started getting texts from homeowners saying, "Thank you so much. This is working." Quite a lot of people were back in their homes within a matter of days. The two key drivers from my point of view in terms of flood resilience are the impact on families in recovery. So the quicker you can get them back in their home, the better. Their kids can still go to the same school, local school. They can start helping their neighbours clean up. Imagine our community able to kind of bounce back super quick from these events and just keep moving on and not go through all of this every time. The other driver for me is waste. So just literally being able to essentially make a hardy home that can withstand. So it doesn't actually need to dry out. 2022 and beyond it's a recognition that the idea works and it has a positive benefit to the Australian community.
Congratulations, JDOCO. I always feel like we should have a drum roll at this point. I'll just get straight to it. I'm delighted to announce the winner of the 2023 Resilient Australia National Award. I can't look at you. Goes to the University of Sydney for their project Person-Centred Emergency Preparedness P-CEP Certificate Course. Please come forward.
Under Australia's emergency management arrangements, the job of government and emergency services is to do two things: make sure every citizen of Australia knows about their local disaster risk and has the tools to make a plan that's suited for their situation. The problem really is that people with disability haven't had the tools to tailor that emergency preparedness and understanding about their local risks to their support needs and risk situation. So our Person-Centred Emergency Preparedness Toolkit was co-designed in partnership with people with disability, the services that support them, and government and emergency services stakeholders, so that we could learn and work together to build the tools that people with disability need to understand what their risks are and take the preparedness steps they need to tailor a plan to their support needs. For our government and emergency services, disability has been sitting in the too hard box for a very long time. And so they've been really hungry for the information in the course that allows them to figure out, how do I invite people with disability into the conversation? How do we create our emergency preparedness plans? How do we create our community engagement strategies so that they're more inclusive of people with disability? Australia's had a challenge of, we have a shared responsibility framework and way of thinking that everyone needs to be involved in this space and take their share, but we really haven't had the tools to make sure everyone can do that effectively. And I think we've shown that people are more than willing to develop their own personal emergency preparedness plan and create those contingencies. And a big part of the sustainability of this course will be the ongoing dialogue and collaboration that happens in the community outside the boundaries of the course and after people have received their certificate.